what I was saying, to summarize, is that we've just looked at an exercise of 30 to 40 minutes of drawing from listening to wonderful music. And that music is dictating the drawing in many ways. It's not about trying to work something out based on viewing something in front of you. It's looking at drawing from an imaginary point of view, where your hand and the brush or the pen is dictated purely lyrically with fluidity based on listening to pieces of music. And as we're saying, I tend to do something very quickly, and then I might work on it later, or I might disregard it. It doesn't matter. I might see something in a small doodle, and I might go, wait a minute, that's a good basis for a more detailed painting. I like large sketchbooks like this because they allow a little bit more freedom.
Yes, definitely.
That's all. It just gives you you can go half the size of this. I've gone I think I must have gone 4 times the size of what you're using, and that's bleach and ink. The ghostly figure of a priest or something coming through some kind of etheric world portal. I don't know, that one, which is again was a little bit longer. I don't know what I was listening to. I can't remember, but I only noticed that I'd created a face within a figure at the same time, which is what I do a lot with my other work anyway.
Yeah.
So you can see here the structure on this one.
Yes.
And that's what you've been showing me. And you've been showing me, this kind of thing where you're doing this. But to get beyond the structure, it's called going beyond the structure. Obviously, you have to pay attention to the reference. And here's a really good example. I brought this in today of an art. This was a student of mine. Can you see this?
Wow.
So, So what they've done is they're using that structure that we've just drawn goes out the window a little bit, because you're having to then look at, this is why these things exist, you're then having to look at a different thing completely. So the waist never goes below number 4, because if it did, you start having people that are like Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four that have been stretched. You're trying to keep everything within that structure. See what I'm doing? I'm just going around the outline of that drawing that's underneath it.
Yeah.
And I'm correcting wherever I need to. Having this structure helps understand, and it'll become clear in a minute when I go through perspective with you, because having the structure I've just given you and then understanding perspective is crucial, because that will enable you then to position things in front of you so you can draw from them and make them look 3-dimensional, as well as use a bit of structure, a bit of gesture. You don't know whether or not you're going to be able to get everything on the sheet, or whether or not the arms are going to be too long. So, because we're using the head as a measuring device, remember?
Right.
We're splitting the head up into proportions, but then we're using the head later to measure the full length of the figure. So absolutely, it's the head. I'm going to use pencil. So I'm going to draw the head in, and I'm not going to worry about anything at this stage apart from just sketching. The pole, with the base, the stand, which would be here. That's the only thing I've missed.
Right.
1, 2, 3. Can you see that makes that finger slightly higher than the others? It's all simple forms. It's all simple shapes connected to make something. It's the perspective.
Yep.
See? So it's useful to know how it works. This stone is nearer to you than this stone.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that's the horizon, where the green meets the blue. So it's all part of that, what we've been looking at. Side as a found edge. And then here's a lost edge, just to go back over it. A lost edge is right at the edge of the hair. This is a lost edge. The more water I use, the more of a lost edge I've got. Have I brought a pencil sharpener down with me? No, I haven't, but it doesn't matter because I can use the edge of that. But you can get those to a point. Top, if you want to do that, if you want it to be like that. That's the lovely thing about the crayon, is you can go back over what you've created so far. I mean, by no means is this a finished drawing, but you get the idea if I put some shoulders in. So, that's the green and that's the blue. So again, it's no different to what I was doing here, but there's a bit more control, and I'm using finer brushes for that one, of course. Drawing coming from this direction direction. Okay, so the light is coming in and hitting this object from the side. So the first thing I'm going to do with acrylic is, once you imagine it's a yellow mannequin, once you start painting with acrylic, you've got to remember that it dries fairly quickly. It's the same approach as anything else. Have a rag handy or tissue, keep taking the water and just keeping it quite moist on the page, just so you're planning out where the shadow is going to go. Back to the palette, and I'm going to get white, only white this time. Might have a bit of yellow in it. And then I'm going to really paint it in. But see what I'm doing? I'm using circular motion with the brush to get that kind of blended effect. So you can see, can you see how the translucency of this browny raw sienna is on top of the yellow? And if I was to add more white to that, it would blend in like it does here. So and I use this very linear approach when I'm painting. So there's a mixture of colors. Can you see I've got the colors, the yellow and the lighter yellows, the browns. I'm building up layers. It doesn't matter even if it's this turquoise. And where does your eye go? You know, it could go here where the eye is, or it could go here, or does it go over there? So, you know, when you're constructing a drawing or a painting, then you are thinking about where you place the objects.
Right.
Prospectively, you'd be doing that as well. You'd be placing the objects as you wanted them to be. That, in effect, is similar to the golden section, because you've got this area here, which is doubled, which actually then is the same size as this area going that way. So it's the same thing. If you then half this and you take that size there, that width, and turn it round and pop it there in terms of its size, whatever you have in here, in this area on the left, A and A, say, is equal to anything you have in this area here, which will be seen as B. So that line there, where those lines intersect, is where you get this idea of, you know, the spiral is exaggerated, especially with the brush marks around here. Can you see that? Okay. Yeah, it's on there, isn't it? Yeah. So you can see the texture. Okay, so you can see how just by framing it, you end up with a different dynamic completely. If I take that off again, right, it's got a different way of working. I don't know whether you've ever done that. Have you ever cut these things out?
I haven't. No.
It's worth trying. It's worth doing. Doesn't matter what size they are. Then the best place for the pen would be, if I just move that out of the way, would be somewhere like so. Because both objects are communicating with each other.
Right.
And I was 17 when I created this image.
Wow.
And there is space. The background is always negative space. The foreground is positive space. So that's another example. There's another example. Right. Here's another one. I'll show you this other thing as well I found. The actual realism of the comic is the fact that I've got objects coming into the composition to give you a sense of direction. So I want the viewer to focus on this central area here, this area here. I want the viewer to look within there, but I've got hard-edged objects around which are framing, secondary framing that area, and I've got a pen there saying, look at Spider-Man. See that? Yeah. So I've blended those areas in a little bit more. Okay. So we've created that found edge, and what we're gonna do then is just keep cleaning the brush. And now with the white, I'm going to imitate that light, the shiny edge of that, where the light is striking the top of the pen. I've got the sketchiness of the Da Vinci drawing. I've got the edges of the brush with ink on the brush. obviously these are swatches and we're looking at just texture. We're not trying to draw anything, but it's just something fun to do, you know, to keep your eye trained. Using water. So if you're going to do a lost edge, then you've obviously got to add more water so it gets softer and softer. There's nothing in there but fun and practice, trying different things out. Like that, for example, that's even better because you can see that's a harsh contrast between black and white, and that's just using the brush swerve, like so, to suggest movement and so on. It's the key thing is background and foreground. That's it. So once that background's dried, we can add other things to it if we wanted to.